In this optional content segment, we're going to look at a small part of recovering failing projects. Recovering failing projects requires a lot of effort outside of Microsoft Project, such as reviewing the project charter, project plans, and project status reports. But Project can be used to troubleshoot some project issues and can record corrective actions such as adding or replacing resources, which changes duration, or inactivating or deleting tasks, which changes both scope and duration. First, once again, we have a little bit of setup to perform. Before we get started, if you are working in an environment including project server access, you want to be sure you do not publish your work in the optional content. Following the steps on this slide will make sure you are disconnected from project server while working on this content. Pause here if necessary and work on making the change before proceeding. Publishing files from this content could impact your regular projects, as we are going to change some settings. Whenever you are connected to Project Server, just avoid opening and editing the files of this content and you will be safe. To start our review of project recovery, download a new project plan. Save it locally on your computer and be sure to open it in MS Project 2013 Professional and not the browser you used to perform the download. First, let's take a look at ways we can identify and troubleshoot schedule issues. Schedule issues will invariably occur on some longer, larger projects. Sometimes the overruns and underruns on tasks will balance out. Maintaining control means knowing when variance has occurred, how large the variance is, understanding this big picture of where you've been and where you're going, and taking corrective action as necessary in your professional judgment to keep the project on track. The plan you downloaded for this segment includes a time-sensitive deadline and a baseline for comparison. We're going to see how to manage a missed deadline and shorten the duration of some tasks on the critical path. Whenever reporting status, looking for variance, or troubleshooting, it's good to start with viewing the project statistics. This is a 6-month project, and we've slipped by almost a month so far. Work and duration are tracking pretty closely, though. Costs have increased quite a bit, however. We've also learned that we need to pull the end date in a bit so we will meet the book printing date, a priority deadline. Let's take a closer look at the plan. Scrolling down the plan, we find that task 45, Generate Proofs, not only has overallocation, but there is a deadline that will be missed if we don't take some action now. We'd better take a look at the critical path. Do you remember how we do that? Following the steps on this slide, the critical path is highlighted in yellow in the entry table. Like many plans, the tasks need not be in chronological order, and we can see that from task 47 on, the tasks are not driving the project end date. So to address the issue, we are going to need to focus only on the tasks that precede task 45. Scrolling back up, we find that task 31, Proofread and Index, is the next task to start. All previous work has check marks indicating completion. The book's author, Tad Orman, and a copy editor are assigned to this task. They are the logical resources to talk to first. After a short discussion, they agree they can complete the work in a slightly shorter time, 12 days. So in the duration field for task 31, type 12D and press the Enter key or tab out. The change to duration makes an improvement, but does it avoid missing the deadline? So you now need to look at the next task, task 32. Haney Morkos and Dan Jump are assigned to this task. After a discussion with them, they agree that adding a resource should help reduce the duration of the task. So you decide to assign Jane Dow as another resource. You would do this at Resource tab, Assignments group, Assign Resources. An action button appears, and you can reduce duration so the task ends sooner, but work remains the same. The last actions made a larger improvement, and you have pulled back the necessary task, 45, about halfway. Continuing down the list of tasks, you notice that tasks 34 and 35 appear to be independent, and they have different resources. So you confirm with the resources that their work is indeed independent and can be performed in parallel, an example of fast tracking. What's more, Luis indicates he is available to start sooner. So you decide that task 35 should have a start-to-start relationship with task 34. Enter 34SS in the predecessor cell for task 35. Success! You have successfully corrected the plan to meet the deadline. At this point, you can clear the highlighting. Now you have to understand that it's not always this easy. You have to discuss and negotiate with the team. Once you've determined new start and end dates, be sure to communicate them not just to the team members, but to the stakeholders as well, and communicate the importance of the deadline. Monitor tasks 32 through 45 closely to make sure that the deadline isn't missed. And you may want to consider if some overtime can help keep everything on track. This slide shows how you can apply overtime to reduce the duration of a task. Unfortunately, this isn't enough to bring the critical task in another day, so you may want to look at some additional overtime or other corrections if you don't want to miss that deadline. Here's the picture of how things look with the overtime applied. Note that if these resources have overtime rates, they will be applied. And as always, it's a good idea to check the statistics again after making this many changes. As a result of the actions taken, not only did you bring in the project end date and meet the deadline, but the costs have been reduced slightly as well. Good job. Now let's take a look at troubleshooting cost and resource issues. Of course, we should start with the project statistics, which we just examined, so let's continue on with this plan. Once we've reviewed the project statistics, the best starting point for examining resources and cost issues, usually directly related to resources, is the cost table as viewed through the resource sheet. Since we're about halfway or so through the project, the picture of costs may have changed, so sorting by resource cost may not be the best strategy. The most expensive resources overall may not be the most expensive for the work that remains. We should look at the remaining costs to find the most expensive resources. Sorting by remaining costs, we find that Haney Morkos and Jane Dow have the largest cost contribution for the remaining work. In addition, Haney is overallocated. Managing the future costs for these two resources will help limit additional cost variance. Going to the Gantt chart view and filtering the resources column by Haney and Jane is one way we can more quickly spot the overallocation. We find that tasks 37 and 41 have the indicator. While we could use resource leveling, chances are we could extend the project schedule and add to costs. So as a first step before doing that, we'd want to look to see if we cannot replace her with a less expensive resource for one of her assignments. Looking at Haney's assignment, we see her cost for task 37 is $1,550. Replacing her with Jun, a less experienced resource that would still be able to successfully complete the task, reduces the cost to $880, a cost savings of $670. In addition, if you check the amount of work, 40 hours, we should expect to complete a day sooner since Jun is a 4x10 employee. This version of project isn't reflecting that, however the difference isn't large enough to be concerned about. Be sure to clear the filter and close the assignments dialog box. Comparing to the final statistics of the last section, we see the remaining work has been reduced to $36,359, or $670 less than it was. Now let's look at troubleshooting scope issues. Remember, after the project has started, scope becomes one of the variables subject to trade-offs. While we don't want to have to do this, we always want to make sure we are making the best informed trade-offs. The project overall is around $10,000 over budget, which we can see from the project statistics. The project sponsors have asked you to cut $5,000 from the project budget to bring costs more in line with the original plan. Looking over the tasks filtered by incomplete tasks, you can see there are tasks to create a companion website for the book. The total cost of this work is $5,834. These are not primary tasks to getting out the book, so you discuss this possibility with the project sponsors, and they agree the website can be eliminated. If book sales go well, a companion website could be added later. One feature that Project Professional has that isn't found in the Standard Edition is the ability to inactivate tasks. With the Standard version, you would have to delete these tasks. Instead, you can preserve them in case you want to reactivate them at a future time. The tasks have no scheduling or cost impact when they are inactivated. Once again, as you check the project statistics, you will find that the remaining work and costs have been reduced, while the project end date is unaffected. Thanks for viewing the optional content on recovering failing projects. This video is independent of the other content. Save your file if you want to review the changes in the future, however, it will not be used in future video content.